All right, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Comics and Sweet Tea. Uh, just letting you guys know, the contest is still ongoing. When we hit that 100 subscriber mark, the 100th subscriber in the U.S. will win a limited edition End of Days Chapter 3 signed by yours truly. So if you're interested in that, hey, sub. That's all you got to do. It's free. Get you a free comic. Uh, really excited for today's show. We got an awesome guest for you. Jump in, subscribe, get those notifications, ring that bell like you're standing in a tower with no pants on. Um, yeah, just all those good things. Sub, tell your friends. We're trying to grow the channel. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the man, the myth, and the legend, Taylor Mosby, Emmy nominated art director on the show Atlanta, creator of Velour and Tweed. And today we're going to get into it, and he's going to tell you all about it. So, without further ado, here's Taylor, and we'll get into it.
Ringing the bell in the tower like you're not wearing pants.
You like that, don't you?
I like it. Where did you come up with that?
Man, hey, you know how it is, man. Some things just, hey, you go with it.
Uh-huh.
You just go with it. And hey, I've always been that way. I have absolutely no filter, man. If it comes through here, it's usually coming out here.
Oh,
So
I think my wife would agree that I'm pretty. She is just a gem, and I'm sure most of the time she's like, "Oh gosh." Like, when we're just the two of us, it's hilarious. But if
right,
I'm out in
you get
public,
out in public, yeah, it's a whole different story. She's like, my wife, she's constantly nudging me. I'm sure you felt that little elbow several
uh-huh,
times. Those things are sharp and they hurt. It's just like, quit. We're in public.
yep.
But Taylor, I just want to say again, we were talking before we, started the show. I appreciate you lending your time and coming on and being a guest and telling us, about your life, about your book, and just really appreciate you being on today.
I'm I'm so so happy to be here. So, as I was telling you before, me having I had a high grade fever for since Wednesday until about yesterday morning, and it was
Right.
just miserable. I had two unexpected dental appointments, and my
Mm.
one of my top concerns was like, will I be ready for this?
Oh,
This
come on now.
I, I'm telling you, I was just like, oh, I cannot. Seriously, I can't miss this. So,
Well, I
um,
appreciate it, man. I know all about it, about the dental pains. We talked about it just a few minutes ago. Man, the last time I had dental issues was earlier this year, and I had that abscess tooth, and I was like, "Doc, pull them all. I don't care.
yep,
We'll get some pliers in here, and we'll get after it,
just
whatever it
pop them.
takes.
Just
Just, just get it out. I
you know
no,
that's
just get the pain.
that scene from
Yeah.
uh what's Castaway where he pops his tooth out.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like you think like no way, and then you have a little, and you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
could
do it.
do it. I could do it.
Dude, I was literally contemplating taking a pair of pliers to mine. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, getting a pair of channel locks and just going after it.
just
And the sad part is the one that was hurting was not the one that was abscessed. It was making, I mean,
everything
I
else.
literally felt like every tooth on this side was abscessed. I was like, I was just fixing to go to town and start snatching
Yeah,
whatever it took.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, but I'm super excited to be here, and just already I've had such a great conversation with you. So just everybody
It's
else
been
just hang
awesome.
in, I guess. You know.
Yeah. Well, man, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about velour and tweed.
All right.
Um, how long? What kind of birthed the idea?
It was
What? Go ahead.
slow. Oh, I'm sorry. I was totally. That's me interrupting.
No,
Awkward moment.
go for it, buddy.
Um,
Go for it.
uh, so a few things. I think three things mainly kind of influence this. One, I guess chronologically, my father, for a brief moment, was a private investigator.
Oh, wow.
And he's done a lot of great, uh, interesting things in his life, and that was one of them. And the short of it is, his partner ran off with all the money, and he had to stop doing that. Um,
Oh, wow.
so that's always been kind of a mythos in the in my mind, in the Mosby family. It
Right.
was before I was born, but not much before I was born. Um, so there were still kind of remnants of that old job that he did, and there are some things in the comic, in the graphic novel, that I kind of hearken from, or that some of his cases, so to speak,
Oh, wow.
that I draw from, and kind of, and with a lot of liberty,
Right.
because he didn't have a rabbit partner. That's the
Gotcha.
main thing. And then the second part of it is, when I was a kid, I had a teddy bear that really became kind of the family mascot. It became, my teddy bear, but it was like the thing that represented kind of the family.
I
and
got
that, if anything needed to be saved in a burning fire, it would probably be that bear.
you. That bear. Gotcha.
And so he was my partner in crime.
Okay.
And the final thing was the story of the Velveteen Rabbit. So when I was 13, in my mind, I'm going to get the time mixed up, but I wanted to be an actor. I got involved in a local play, The Velveteen Rabbit, in a local theater.
Really cool.
And I think during that time, I know during that time, at some time, I was diagnosed with leukemia. And so the story of this creature wanting to be not just alive, but to be real, kind of hit home.
Right.
So initially, when I wanted to create this story, I really had this idea that it would be a bear and a private investigator, a teddy bear.
Okay.
And then the movie Ted came out, because I've had this idea.
They kind of stole your thunder a little bit.
Uh-huh.
I got you.
And I was like, nah. And then I, hemmed and hawed on the idea, and finally landed on, came back around to this idea of, it'd be great for it to be a stuffed rabbit.
Right.
And so, because it's still I think probably maybe the second most endearing stuffed animal. A teddy bear and a stuffed rabbit are probably neck and neck. And then I just wanted to kind of reverse this idea that this stuffed animal was the one who was really the one who was kind of pissed off, and this detective, who's kind of got all the reason in the world to be pissed off, was really trying to be the optimist, was really trying to do, what was not just what was right, but try to put a positive spin on things, even though life is just not good on him. So,
right.
It took me a long while to put it together, and I tried to do right by face and by getting the outline put together and really being on top of things so I could hand them off to him so he wouldn't be waiting on me. But he's really patient, and I'm glad because I did not succeed. So anything that you read in the book that you're like, this didn't play off well, it's nothing to do with face and has everything to do with the fact that I was working or living or just being lazy. I don't know. So
been there, buddy. Been there.
Yeah. So I'm really great, and I'll just plug in right here. I'm really grateful to be working and have worked with Faison, because I've got some artistic ability. I've got some modicum of talent. But Faison, his work really just shines. It's just people are like, well, why don't you do it? And I was like,
it really fits.
Have you seen what he can do? Because I mean, if you've seen it, then you wouldn't be asking me, because I can doodle and I can be like, hey, you do this and you do that. And then people are like, all right, sure. But I think it really benefited from his touch. And I guess to my credit, when I handed something over to him, 90% of the time, I was like, hey, come back at me with whatever you got. And he came back with me with like pink and neon and like bright colors. And I was like, well, this is supposed to be a gritty story. And I was like, wow, like that is brilliant because it's just so opposite and it's so perfect for what it juxtaposed so well. The overall idea.
It pops. It does. It really pops.
Yeah. So and
now let me ask you. Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask you this. Now, Faison, was he who you automatically had in mind for this from the jump, or did you kind of go through a process, or was he the guy from the very beginning? You just knew he was the guy that you wanted to do this.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Gotcha.
I've known him for a while. He, my only other successful Kickstarter campaign was a kid's story called Elk Bar, and he illustrated that, and I could not afford him at the time.
Gotcha.
And that Kickstarter was really about just paying him.
I gotcha.
And so the next go round, with Valor and Tweed, it was like, I can pay you to do this and let's move ahead. And then we can get to the Kickstarter. And by then we won't have to worry about you being paid for it.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, since then, there are other people that I would really like to have do kind of Valor and Tweed adjacent stories.
Okay. Kind of just spin-offs from where your original tale. I got you.
Right.
New cases.
Yeah, I mean that, or even in the world that Valor and Tweed live in, the city that they live in. So just other stories. And there is one that's in this current volume that we call Tales from Port Orion. And that one's illustrated by Joey Sabo. And it's just, a weird little side story, or just fleshes out the world more. I mean, there's a lot to it. So, anyway, I'm interested in exploring that more.
I got you. You've tapped into a well, and you want to develop it. I got you.
Yeah,
completely understand that.
Yeah, and I think maybe for some people it might be I wouldn't say easier, but less daunting to kind of flesh out something that's already the groundwork's been laid. Like that, in the meantime, as they work out their stories, they might want to kind of hone in their craft by doing a little short story, So if I can provide something like that, I think that'd be fantastic.
I got you. So, kind of, have you ever thought about doing like, getting a few artists together and just doing like an anthology book with different little short stories, different artists, and throwing it out there as a single issue? Just throw it all together and go with it like that.
You know, I think I have, but kind of subconsciously. I don't think
I got you.
not, I haven't gotten to the point where, I mean, I think now, I'll be like, oh yeah, this is my idea from the beginning. But then everyone will watch this interview and be like, we know where it came from. So, um, but yeah, I think something like that would be a neat idea. And I think some people have
Yeah.
really expressed an interest in man, I've met a lot of great, talented folks. And I'd be honored if they would jump on board. So,
I got you. And I've thought about something like that for End of Days, and I mean, it leaves it wide open. I mean, there's so many different directions you can go with, and I mean, personally, I thought about, maybe if somebody wanted to write, their own part in the anthology,
mhm,
and I draw it, or they get their own artist. I mean, it's just wide open.
yeah,
There's so many things you could do with just an anthology book. Just however many short stories you wanted to put together. Some of them could be longer than others, depending on fitting the story in general. You could
mhm,
have 2 or 3 pages, or 5 or 10 pages. Just whatever it took to get that little story told. It's something I thought about a lot.
mhm.
I hadn't quite jumped out there until right now, and put it out into the ethos, so to speak. But personally, I think as a creator, it would be an awesome thing.
Mhm,
It just sounds like a lot of fun. You know.
mhm. Yeah, I think that there was a neat thing that was going on way before Disney acquired Star Wars, um, where Lucas, not necessarily George Lucas, but Lucas meaning
Right, Lucasfilm. I got you.
Lucasfilms, um, allowed for, um, you know, writers especially, but also illustrators to come up with their own Star Wars lore that fit specific parameters. Um,
Right,
which
it fit the world. I
right,
got
and
you.
which I don't think that's a limitation. I think that's kind of a challenge. Having borders is, I mean, it's much like having borders to a piece of paper. Like you
Right,
only got this
there's
space to
borders to everything. Right.
right to make things work. Um, and you know, diehard older grumpy, uh, fans
Yeah.
um, would say that no, it's a kind of a good thing, and a lot of good things came of it.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
so, so that kind of thing. I mean, just having people just slightly interested, which people have said that they are, is honoring. It's just mind blowing to me. So
Yeah, man. Ever
I'm right there
since you
with you.
contacted me, and with the ad and everything, and I seen it, I was instantly intrigued. You know, I mean, that it's like I said earlier, the colors, the characters, everything just pops, and it just begs you to dive into it. It just it seems like such an original idea. It's just there's so many things you could do in that world. It's just really cool idea.
No, yeah, I agree. I agree. And for anybody else out there that doesn't know, um, we're releasing floppies. I'm trying to get it there. Of the single issue. So
Awesome.
the velour and tweed, which you can see, well, it's not mirrored, so it's there. Um, is
Yeah,
the
right behind his shoulder.
right there. Um, is the 10 issues plus the issue of Tales of Port Orion. But we decided that we're going to release some floppies Faison and I are going to Baltimore Comic Con at the end of October, and we thought, man, it'd be great to have just kind of single issues to give out and sell and just help really just use it as an opportunity for marketing.
Yeah.
And we talked to, I talked to Comic Wellsprings, and they seem to really offer the best quality and the
They do
best.
some great stuff. They
Right, I
really
mean,
do some
so
quality
far,
work.
I'm very impressed, not only with the quality of their work. I mean, it just feels
It's
nice.
beautiful.
Looks nice.
Yeah.
It's so vibrant. But so I decided to do that. But because of the layout, I had extra pages, and I really wanted to offer that to people to get their stuff out. People have been plenty supportive. This one we've got. There's another. There's a podcast called We Have Issues, and I got to put their advertisement in there. So
That's cool.
this is just really great. So that when you mentioned that, when I asked you about advertisement, that's what it was. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so it was great to do that. I'm so honored that people have supported me enough, and it made it so easy to reach out to people and say, hey, if I can help you, let me know. I'd love to support you.
Yeah. And that's, I've tried Twitter. I hated it. I fooled with Facebook a little bit. Don't care for it. Instagram is kind of my home social, and I've met so many incredible people, creators, artists, writers through the Instagram.
Mhm.
Man, it's just nothing else touches it
Yeah.
in my book. I mean, I've the group that I'm associated with now that I'm a part of, Savage Sandbox. I mean, these guys, they got the same story that I got. They've always had this ambition and this dream of doing comics, and just like most things, life got in the way, and we got sidetracked for 20, 30 years or whatever, and now here we are. It all kind of birthed through the pandemic, through COVID. We all just kind of it just kind of it was one of those happy accidents, like Bob Ross used to say. We just all kind of it all kind of hit at the same time.
Yeah.
And I can me and these guys talk just about every day. And not only them, Dan Price from Bigfoot Knows Karate,
Yeah.
Dee Hausner, Keith Morange. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. These guys, I chat with them all the time. I mean,
Mhm.
even though I've never personally met any of them, these
Mhm.
guys are just. I feel like we grew up together.
Yeah.
Because we've got the same hopes, we've got the same dreams, we've got the same ambitions, and it's really cool to have that community, that
Yeah.
you can reach out to. It's
Yeah.
really an awesome thing.
It really is. It really is a wonderful thing. I heard someone recently mention C.S. Lewis quote about friendship, and something that came up about like, oh, you too? I thought I was the only one. And like that is kind of the root of friendship, is this idea of like you come across somebody that says something, does something, is something, and you're like, whoa, wait a second. You too?
Exactly.
And it's just a fantastic
It's
sensation.
an awesome thing.
It really is.
Bringing together a bunch of like-minded people,
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just decide to just kind of step up and do it, because what choice have you got?
Exactly. I mean, why not?
Yep. And then you do it, and then you realize, like, wait a second, like I'm not by myself. Like,
I'm not on the island here. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a pile of us. I've had the pleasure to meet you through this, and like, and all those other guys, like I was talking about earlier. I mean, it's incredible,
Yeah.
and when you're right in the middle of a project, and I hate to kind of jabber on, but when I know you know what I'm talking about, but when you're in the middle of a project, you kind of do feel like you're on an island, and it's
Mhm.
an amazing thing to know that you have these people in your corner that you can reach out to and say, "Well, I'm kind of hung right here. I don't know exactly. You know, throw some ideas at me. Or it's an amazing process."
Yeah,
Is
no,
what I'm getting at.
yeah, absolutely,
And you're not alone.
yeah. Um, and I'm sure that you can relate to this because of your work schedule. Um, but I know for mine, when I'm on mine, it's like I'm on a project, and it's very difficult for me to like first priority is my family.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
it might be a secondary project, which might be creative. It might be getting stuff done around the house.
Right.
Um, and so I'll go like a period of time where I'm really active on Instagram, which is also kind of, I don't like Twitter. I like Facebook, all right. I'm just not very active on it as far as
Right.
Valorant Tweed goes. Um, but you know, I, but when I do come back to it, I'm just amazed that it's just kind of like, it's not like, well, I mean, I guess you're too good for us, so.
Exactly.
But it's
It's
I
it's
get the
like
message.
coming back home.
Uh-huh. It's just like, oh, good, you're back. Good, glad to see you
Yeah.
again. Where
It's
you
like you
been?
went off to college for a semester and you come back. Yeah, that's the
Yes.
way I felt because I took breaks,
Yeah.
and I can't be on there as much as I want to because you know my work schedule. I work 21 and 21, so for 21 days I'm out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico with shitty internet. So,
Yeah.
but I try to catch up when I can, and I try to post, and stay in the algorithm. You
Hmm.
gotta love that IG algorithm. I mean, yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's my favorite. But yeah, I mean, it's literally like going off to college and coming back home, and they're like, "Hey, man, I'll start getting chats. Oh, you're back home?" I was like, "Yeah, man. Oh, well, I'm glad you made it home safe. It's just it's awesome to know that people are out there and they care about you.
Yeah. No.
It's where on Twitter they're like, they could care less. All they're worried about is starting a big trend of how much they hate this or how much they hate that or who we want to cancel today. You know,
Yeah. I think it's that's just a waste of time. I mean, like, fine, like
exactly.
you're entitled to have those opinions or feelings. You may or may not be wrong about those uh, feelings or ideas or
Right.
intuitions. But I know myself that's a waste of time. It's a waste
Yeah.
of time as much as fan fiction is a waste of my time. And I think there's a lot of people that kind of um, sharpen their craft or have a lot of fun doing things like fan fiction. So I'm not necessarily down on fan fiction,
I
but
got you.
some people I'm like, man, like you're clearly talented enough to do
To
stuff.
do your own thing. Exactly.
Right. Now whether or not they are inclined to do that is, I don't know. But sometimes I'm just like, man, like they spent so much time on this. It's almost like, are they hiding something from us because of fear or, um, uh, they're just concerned what people would think. And I'll say it in this because I'm not smart enough to have the right words, but I'm almost mad at them because it's like, you might be keeping something good from us because you're spending all this
Right.
time on fan fiction. And I don't mean that to sound as harsh as it does, but it's just me being
I
not
know
smart
it.
enough.
If you're going to put the time into something else, I see exactly where you're going with that because I wondered the same thing too. And I'm not downing these people either. It's just you put that much time into somebody else's thing and you've got all this talent. Why don't you jump out there and put that into your own thing? And I think a lot of that probably stems from the world we live in, from from Twitter and stuff like that. People are so quick to tear other people down over any and everything, and there's this underlying fear in people to just put themselves out there like that. I think because of social media, I think we've kind of done it to ourselves in some ways.
I think that's a really great point. I think that really is. I think that, it's safer to kind of, I wouldn't say hide in someone else's shadows, but kind of maybe make a chalk outline of someone else's shadow.
Right.
You kind of use what's there, and you can kind of get your stuff out there, and you kind of dodge criticism. I think recently, and I can't confirm this as fact, but I've seen a lot of stickers slapped on the back of cars that say, be patient, student driver. And when I pass the driver, they don't look like students. They look like middle-aged people.
Oh, wow.
And I've seen them a lot, and I'm starting to keep track of them in Atlanta. And it seems like you might just be putting these stickers on your car so you can just maybe be on your the phone and drive poorly and just try to use that sticker as a means to block the road rage. Like, hey, I got the sticker on my car. I'm a
kind of hide your inefficiencies, hide behind that. Exactly.
But hey, full confession. The name of the first issue, the first line of Valor and Tweed is, "This thing really sucks."
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's not the name of the issue, but
I got you.
My gosh, I said it wasn't the name of the issue.
Oh, wow.
There it is. There it is.
Oh.
This thing really just, I really know what I'm.
That's awesome.
So Valor is a space pilot. No, he's not. But yeah, I put it out there because it was just like, hey, like, if someone says, oh, this thing really sucks, it's like, yeah, I know. I mean, that's the first thing I said about it. It's a degree of protection. I get,
right.
So, and part of me is like, oh, I'm super clever for coming up with that. And then the part of me is like, I should have had more confidence. But, oh, well.
The main thing is you did it. I mean, you jumped out there and you did it, and a lot of people, they're just scared to do that. They're scared to put themselves out there. So congrats to you for putting it out there, for following your dreams with it. You had an idea and you made it happen. Not everybody can do that.
No, I thank you. And I kind of thank you because I know that that's a broad congratulations. I know that, like, when I say thanks, I know that there's other people that may be watching or hearing this or seeing this later that are like, yeah, I'm doing that too. And I know, even I know you briefly, but I know you well enough to know that you extend that, congratulations to all of them as well.
Oh, definitely.
And so for me to be a part of, that group is great. So anyway.
Kind of sidelining, a lot of people, they know Valor and Tweed, but they don't know, exactly your background. They don't know that you've you're Emmy nominated for Atlanta, the show Atlanta, and you worked on movies, The Founder with Michael Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked on Highwaymen with Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson. Tell us about some of that. I imagine you got some great stories from all of that. First of all, congratulations on getting the Emmy nod. I mean, tell us about that first, and then we'll go from there, because hey man, that's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. So I got an Emmy nomination for production design. Fortunately for me, the production design nomination is shared between the production designer and the art director, which was my position, and the set decorator. We got an
Gotcha.
Emmy nomination for season 2's episode called Teddy Perkins.
Okay.
It was just this weird Michael Jackson-esque type episode. It's just so weird. It's so good. And by the way, for people that like comics, Atlanta is an excellent show for comic book lovers, I think,
Cool.
in my personal opinion. It feels comic book like it, and not necessarily like in any particular genre. It's not, superhero. It's not,
Right.
detective or, but it kind of feels kind of pulpy. It kind of feels paced like a comic, and it feels kind of, it's got bizarre, supernatural, surreal moments like comics can get away with easily.
Gotcha.
So we worked on this weird episode, and in short, we got nominated for an Emmy for it, and we didn't get it, which was unfortunate. But
man, just to be thought of and put in that category, I mean,
yeah,
that's amazing.
yep. My wife and I, and our pretty much brand new born son at the time, went out to the Emmy Awards, and we got to go and not get the award. But it was super exciting, and it was great because when I was asked to do the show, Donald Glover was kind of an unknown. I mean, now we know him as
Exactly. He's directly tied to it now. When you
Yeah.
think of Donald Glover, you think of Atlanta. But before then, even though he kind of started out in Community, nobody really remembers him for that.
Yeah. I mean, they don't remember him, and I think that he actually was writing for 30 Rock before that.
I think so. Yeah.
Which I can't confirm that, but I'm 90% certain that he was doing that. But I love Community. So when my friend and boss, although he would hate to say, he hates to hear when I say, "Oh, he's my boss." He hates it. Timmy O'Brien. He knew me as a graphic designer, and he was like, "Hey, do you know who Donald Glover is?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, I'm working on this little show. We already did the pilot for it. I need somebody that can kind of handle, I need somebody who's like a good graphic designer, because they can't really afford a graphic designer and an art director. But I need someone who could be sharp enough to handle both graphic design and art direction at the same time.
Wow.
You want to do it? And I was like, yeah, I've got no idea how to be an art director. And he's like, that's okay. You've had art directors. You've worked with art directors. I'll make sure that you don't fail.
That's really cool.
The first season, I was assistant art director to no art director. It was an assistant. It was, they had to bring me in. I wasn't part of the union. I was part of a union. I wasn't part of like Art Directors Guild. So the only thing they could offer me was assistant art director. And man, I remember sitting around the table, and Donald Glover's across the way, and everyone's introducing themselves, and it gets to me, and it's like, Taylor Mosby, assistant art director. Really, I really just embrace it, and then it finally ends on Donald, and he's like, "Hey, I'm Donald Glover. I'll be taking credit for all the work you do." And it was kind of refreshingly honest. But it was also, man, just there's so few shows that in movies that I'm excited to share with other people. There's some stuff that it's like, this is a paycheck. But
I got you.
But the shows that you mentioned, The Founder and The Highwayman, those are all like, oh yeah. But Atlantis, right now is, and man, if there's one that beats Atlanta, that'll be great. But Atlanta is just the one. So, anywho, long story longer. I worked on first season. Came back for the second, and then that season ended, and we all knew that they were going to go to Europe at the end of that season, and we're like, well, they're not inviting us. I mean, we know how the industry works. They're not inviting the art department to Europe. And then COVID hit, and things got pushed back, and they still did the Europe thing, and then they came back just in the right time, and they said, hey, do you guys want to do half of season 3 and the rest of and all of season 4? And we were like,
oh wow,
oh yeah, and it worked out a whole lot. And season 3 was not met with a lot of good fanfare. I think personally, because I'm just a mega fan, that I appreciate some of the intricacies of it. I think season 4 has been a lot more kind of harkening back to season 1 and 2. And this next episode that's coming up is going to be, if we get nominated again, that'll be the episode we're probably nominated for.
Gotcha. Well, fingers crossed you get nominated and you take this one to the house, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've told other people before, like, I'd rather be nominated twice and not get it than nominated once and get it.
I gotcha.
And not ever get a nomination again. Like, I'd rather have, I'd rather people be like, oh yeah, he's capable of hanging in there. Rocky, going the distance.
Right.
But anyway, I could go on and on about Atlanta. I really could. So stop me now.
No, God, hey man, I'm enjoying this.
But yeah, and another Atlanta and Donald and his brother Steven and that group, they allowed the art department such freedom to add to the story much. And I think it's really been an example of how I've been, or tried to have been, with Faison, where it's like, here's the idea.
That's what I was just fixing to say. You're fleshing out his world like Faison fleshed out your world.
Yes, I think that now that you mentioned it, I think that really had a great influence on me. Where, of course, there was a lot of, no, we're not going to go that way. But there was still a lot of trust.
Right.
There's so many jokes that I wouldn't necessarily came up with. Maybe a few here and there that are graphic jokes that are signage and, funny things in the background. That I was, I just came up with myself. But then there was a lot more that I was allowed to kind of continue the joke of. And it was just, wow, like I can do this, and they're, and I just stopped asking, because I was,
it just started going with it.
Yeah. And this next episode, I'm not gonna, I won't spoil it, but I will say that I was asked to do something, and then I was asked to double what I did.
Okay.
and I had 2 days to do it, and I did it. And then to see Donald Glover go, this is pretty good. It was like,
that's got to be an awesome thing.
Oh God, and I have this tendency to dress up on Friday, do my tie-dye Friday. I buck the system. I have a formal Friday, rather than a casual Friday, because I could wear pajamas to work. And the only comments I would get would be like, I like your pajamas. Like, no one would care. So I'm like, you know what?
Oh, wow.
Like,
that's awesome.
I mean, it is, but it's also kind of like,
Yeah.
I want to be addressed the way I'm dressed, and I don't want that. So, here I am, like, it's like summertime, and I'm sweating. I'm wearing, like, I think my grandfather's old suit, and he's like, you're looking spiffy. And I'm like, Thanks. Because it was like, is this an insult coming from you? But I guess an insult from Donald Glover. Like, you feel, close enough to me to insult me. Like, yay,
Right.
But it's, I don't know. I'm just super pumped about that. But anyway, yeah, that's done with Atlanta. I'm done. Unless you want to talk more about it.
It sounds like you've got like you said, you've got a really good situation there, creatively, where they actually, it's like a symbiotic relationship. Y'all are kind of feeding off each other. He's writing the story, or he has, and you're fleshing it out, and he's giving you that creator freedom to flesh it out. So it seems like a really, really, really good situation.
Yeah, I think I and people around me in working on Atlanta were very fortunate. I think that the majority of the industry is probably more like Marvel and DC, the stories that I've heard from them, where they are kind of cogs in the machine.
Right.
There's a particular company whose mascot is a mouse. I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. Know where you going. Yep.
And I know from talking to people, I may have experienced it before, that your creativity is not really existent. It's just you kind of whittle things down until it's what they want, and then you go from there.
Oh wow.
And I think that there's people that there's such a great freedom into kind of doing your own thing, and I was very fortunate to be involved with a show that trusted us so much.
Right.
When I was a graphic designer for The Founder and The Highwaymen, I wouldn't say there was trust, but it was a different atmosphere being a biopic.
Right. They already had. It's just like we were talking about earlier. You were in that box. You had your limitations, and you had to fit into that box. For them to get it as close to real as possible, slightly exaggerated.
Yeah, I think that's right, and that there was kind of. Ironically, there was kind of a freedom in that, because you're right out the gate, you're given the parameters. You're saying, they say, hey, here's this old grainy photo of the McDonald's brothers in front of their sign. We need you to create this sign so when we film it, it doesn't look grainy. It looks exactly like it should.
I gotcha. Yeah.
And The Founder was an early movie that I did. And I came in, and they had two graphic designers before I came in. One of them had done some work and then completely flaked, and then the other one they brought in, and he just one day, essentially he flaked too. Took his stuff home for the weekend, and I got a call from somebody that I'd worked with before, and they're like, hey, can you come in? And I jumped on it, and they were all excited to see me, and I was still pretty new to doing what I was doing, and they were all like super, oh yeah, thanks for oh man, you're just killing it. And I'm thinking like, oh, this is just something they say. But I'm just trying to pound stuff out. The production designer, just, man, what a gem of a guy. Just said what he wanted calmly, concisely. If he didn't do what he didn't yell, or just, he was firm about what he wanted. Good with pointers, and I was able to create some stuff that looked both right periodically, and just good in general. And so the Founder came
Yeah.
out and it was just like, oh, geez, like I was,
Awesome
um,
movie. Awesome
yeah,
movie.
oh, yeah, I
Fantastic
mean,
job all the way around.
yeah, I mean,
From the
so
production design to the acting to the story. I mean, it was.
yeah,
I mean, we
so
all know what McDonald's is, but nobody really knew that story. And
yeah,
to finally, oh wow, that's really cool. To
yeah,
to
well,
actually finally see that, that's awesome.
yeah, so yeah, no, it was great. I didn't get to interact with the actors. Personally, I don't really care to. I have nothing to do with them. But oh, I can't think of his name. What's his name?
Michael
Ron from
Keaton.
no, Michael. I mean, I've
Oh,
got a lot of respect for him, but he played Ron Swanson.
oh God, I know exactly.
Okay, everybody else is gonna be like, you fools.
Exactly.
I grew up in like Manuka, Illinois, or something like. But anyway, in an interview or something, he was impressed with how well we did, and the whole crew just worked really hard to make that work.
Yeah.
And then I was super thrilled to be asked to go to Louisiana to work on The Highwaymen, which is about the guys that captured, well, ended up killing Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
And it was great to work on that kind of movie because there's this kind of glorification of the bad guy, the people that you know. There's kind of this Robin Hood mentality that the
Exactly.
bad guy, the thief, the murderer, oh, they're really good. The outlaw is really good, and there was really nothing really good about Bonnie and Clyde. They were just sensationalized.
Exactly.
So the same people that produced The Founder did The Highwaymen, and they took this really more honest, in my opinion, approach in Bonnie and Clyde, and they took these flawed characters that tracked Bonnie and Clyde. And I was super thrilled to travel as a graphic designer to New Orleans because I was told in my career that, oh, they don't travel graphic designers. They only hire local graphic designers. But they traveled me to Louisiana, and I was like, ha ha, take that, suckers.
That's awesome.
So I was super thrilled to travel as a graphic designer, and then also be a part of it. And it was neat. I was in Laplace, Louisiana. I think that's how they pronounce it.
Laplace.
Yeah, I think so.
You might be right, but I want to say it depends on what side of I-10 you're from.
You're probably right.
Louisiana.
Yeah, because I said Laplace to somebody, and they said no, it's Laplace. And then I think I ran into the same thing where I said Laplace.
Tomato.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Potato, tomato, cherry.
Exactly.
So, and that was just another really great one to work on. So it was just really neat to do that. And again, same sort of things where there's parameters and, I had to do a lot of research and see what things actually look like. And
that was my next question. Was it tougher? Well, let me back that up because The Founder was kind of a period piece too.
Mm-hmm.
Did it make it more? Was it harder to kind of do the Highwaymen to find the reference material to kind of get the right feel for it? Did it make it more complicated being an older period piece or?
Yeah, in some ways it really was because nowadays we have printers that are crisp and clear. So you type out your Courier New font and it's a crisp looking font, but that's not how it is or would be in then, and not because,
Yeah,
well, I mean,
that was typeset, wasn't it?
yeah, there was,
I never had even thought about that part of it.
yeah,
Yeah, I got you. To try and
there,
get that typeset look. I imagine
there's,
I couldn't even imagine all the work that went into that.
yeah. So there's, there are things that you'd have to take in consideration of how it's going to appear on camera, and if you make things too digital, they're going to look digital, and that means they're going to look
Right.
wrong. Something that I often tell new graphic designers for the industry is like, if it looks right, it's right. It might look wrong to you, but it might be right. If you're
Right.
making a movie set in 1993 and it's a fourth grade school classroom, and you see Comic Sans on the wall, like, that's all right, because that's what the teacher would have used to put something out there. It's like, oh, Comic Sans. I don't want to use Comic Sans. I don't want to use Papyrus, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And so to try to make sure that that though it looks right time wise, or that for the time period, is sometimes difficult to hone in on and make look right. So I had to make the map for that, which I can't show you right now. It's on the wall over here.
Gotcha.
But the map that they use and they mark on, I had to create, and really, in full disclosure, I had like a baseline map that I had to really cut down and manipulate, which is a trade secret. We can get files and then kind of start from there, and then chisel and add and chisel and add and chisel and add.
Right.
But to make sure that that looked right for the time, and then also look right for the film, is something that can take a little finessing, and then you're kind of just like, well, I'm done. I can't help. Here it is. You're gonna have to make it work on camera.
Gotcha.
So to go back and answer your question, I feel like in a lot of ways the Highwaymen was more difficult because there was a lot more typeset type issues. I remember spending the night before it shot, getting a catalog that Kevin Costner carried around in his back pocket, fixed. And I was the one, me and the PA, the production assistant, were in the office printing it out and
Oh wow.
stapling it together, and making a few copies. And the next morning it was being filmed. So yeah, but I mean, you can end up with all sorts of weird hiccups and difficulties. So
Yeah. I couldn't even imagine, man. Just being on set like that. So you basically you were there pretty much 24/7 while they were filming for, just stuff like that. Set pieces and making sure everything looked right to fit the era. Is that right?
yeah, I mean, I think, well, as a graphic designer, not so much 24/7 per se,
Gotcha.
but I was at least 12 hours a day, working
Right.
that kind of thing, Monday through Friday without stop for however many months I was there. And then
Right.
even in the time off, you're spending a lot of time thinking like, okay, when I get back to work on Monday, this is what I got to attack right away. And you come in and
Gotcha.
you attack it right away. You're not stopping by getting coffee and running around to everyone else say, oh, how was your, I went golfing this weekend, and
Yeah.
you
So even
just
when you weren't working, you were working.
yeah, I think so. And I think that that's not
Yeah.
like, I want productions to treat crew fairly, and treat crew like they should have lives and take care of stuff. But I think the truth of the matter is that crew cares about the production,
Right.
and
You want
they
it to
take,
look the best it possibly can.
right, and they
Yeah.
take it with them. And I think that part of that, me wanting the crew to make sure that they take time for themselves, is me knowing that I can tell them to go home. I've told my art coordinator to go home, and she'll stay an hour and a half later, easy, just to get her job done.
Wow.
So it's that kind of thing, because people are dedicated.
Yeah. Well, they've got that love and that passion for the
Mhm.
project.
Yeah, absolutely. So, which I think was an easy transition, or is an easy transition to see people that love the personal projects that they're on, or get excited for other people's projects. Like you've mentioned before about the community, about how excited
Oh, wow.
everybody
Yeah.
is for Kid Nebula. Like everybody's excited for this,
Exactly.
that kind of thing. So,
There's a whole buzz, you know.
mhm,
I mean, people, well, you know, just like with Velour and Tweed, I mean, you get this buzz going on, and it's contagious, man. It really is. It's an awesome thing, you know, for people to share that love for your project. Uh,
mhm,
you know, I'm sure doing Velour and Tweed, and just like you were talking about earlier, people showing the interest to be a part of this project, you know, that's that's there are no words for that as a creator in my book, you know, to get that validation, so to speak, that it's not just your thing anymore. I mean, technically it is your thing, but people love it so much that they want to be a part of it, and that just it's mind blowing to me,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. It really makes me respect people that have had uh, intellectual properties that people have gotten so behind, and they they feel like it's part of their lives, and they feel like, oh, there's so much pressure to do right by them.
Right.
um and I hope that oh gosh, man, I would be fantastic to get to there. If I'm ever blessed enough to get to there, I'd hope I'd do right by them by continuing to do right by what I've done before, by the characters and the story that I've previously
Right.
created, and just continue with that. Um, because part of it is, saying, hey, I trust and love what you've got, that you're following me, you're following these folks, but you trust me that I'll continue to lead this story in a way that you'll still love. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's a super difficult thing. And I don't begrudge anybody that's like, ugh, I don't want
Yeah.
to, like, hey, what do you guys think that my story should be? Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm not one of those like, F you guys, like it'll be whatever I want it to be.
I'm gonna do, yeah,
I'm
exactly.
gonna, oh, you want him to
This is
live?
my thing.
Dead.
I want to kill him. I'm gonna kill him.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, this family of puppies, dead.
Yeah. All of them, one by
All of them.
one, slowly.
Yep. Yep. This bus full of nuns is crashing into the puppy farm.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry. But
So tell me this. We were talking earlier. Okay, so you've got the 1 through 10, and
mhm,
now you're introducing the floppies, and we talked about a possible, you know, anthology maybe one day.
mhm.
Um, this is not the full story. Do you plan on? Do? We don't have to go into this deeply, but do you have other stories? Do you have another arc or two or three that you're thinking about for this story for
Uh,
for this
yeah,
comic?
yeah, I do. There's uh, most certainly another story arc that I'm working on in my mind, kind of plotting out, um, before I put it on my index cards. Which, by the way, anybody that's getting the Kickstarter books, they're gonna get my some one page of my index notes. Which
Oh,
good luck
wow.
trying to read those because my handwriting is terrible. Oh, so Tweed says the not it,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah.
But I haven't committed anything to paper yet. But yeah, there's some things that
Gotcha.
I would like to do. There's some characters that came about out of necessity. And I don't think Deo Ex Machina, just I was thoughtful about how I tried to, if a character had to show up, that there was some depth to that character, that character had, some background and some roots. They didn't just show
Right.
up to,
Just magically appear and
right.
one of those one-off type deals. Nothing to them. It's just there for the sake of being there and then gone. I
Right.
got you.
But there is one character that got created kind of late in the game that I think will play kind of a central, a big role in the next story arc. And that's kind of exciting to see how a story can develop like that. I think
Yeah,
Stephen
definitely.
King said something like, he kind of, writes a scenario and then writes some characters and then just kind of follows them where they go. And I'm not comparing myself to Stephen King.
No, but I can totally relate to that. I mean, it
Yeah,
makes total sense
you just
in
kind
the
of
process.
you just kind of set rules and then you follow
Hmm.
those rules. And then a lot of times I'm like, God dang, why did I set those rules? Um,
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough. That's just me. But yeah, there's more to it that I want to express. For those of you who have read Valor and Tweed online, which it is for the time being still available for free at valorandtweed.com. If you get to the end, you're like, oh, this is definitely a cliffhanger. There's the resolve of, no, I wouldn't say the resolve of that, but that kind of continues, or that cliffhanger resolves. And then there's kind of more that develops out of that. I don't right now. I don't foresee anything beyond the next story arc.
Okay.
I thought that there may be another story beyond this first story arc, but I don't know. But we'll see. I love.
Well, yeah, it's just like we were talking earlier, though. Once you get into a story, it kind of becomes its own thing, and after it gets a little age to it, you I don't know what it is, but I can go back to something I done, say 15, 20 years ago, and you look at it with a completely new set of eyes,
Uh-huh.
and immediately you think of another way to go with it that you
Yep.
never thought possible at the time because of your experiences through life
Yep.
and things of that nature. So a story is never really done. I that's the easy way to put it to me.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, to go back to the Stephen King of it all, he started out wanting to do this Dark Tower story. He did it
Yeah.
early on, and then in his semi autobiography on writing, he said, when he's explaining his work process, he's like, he writes something and he puts it in a drawer and lets it mellow for a couple months, and then he comes
Yeah.
back to it and rereads it. And I think that there's a great benefit from that, because you can look at it and be like, well, this is really naive, or wow, this is really profound.
Yeah.
And you can kind of let time sift through your thoughts. And I think that's a great luxury that I hope that creators can grant themselves rather than thinking like, oh, I've got to have this out right now. I've got to do it right now. And maybe they should, maybe it should appear like they're just pounding out stuff, but they've really taken the time to write something or create something and then make something else and then come back to what they've done before and then get that out. And then while that's getting out there, they come back to the other, and just make it a kind of inchworm type situation.
I got you.
And I think maybe I probably hope that for myself more than anybody, but I'll let you know if I ever can do it and if it works.
Well, that leads us into the next question. You brought it up, so we're going to blame you. Do you have any other projects in mind that you're developing that you want to bring to comics? Something on the back burner? I know how it is as a creator. You've always got something back there that you're playing with that you just waiting on the way to. You're trying to figure out the way you want to do it.
Yep. So there's two things for I think that are most of my mind. One is almost certain. So I mentioned before about doing the first Kickstarter Elk Bar that Face and I did.
Right.
I think both of us would really like to
go back,
re-examine that, go back to that, kind of clean that first issue up, and then create at least a second and third book or issue. We're going to, I think, re-examine how the format is.
I got you. Kind of remaster it.
Yeah, I think so. And at least do a 1, 2, and 3, and maybe a 1 through 5 story really for this kid's story. And that again, we only made like 500 copies of that. We didn't put that out in the public really. I've been super honored by kids that have email or the kids' parents have emailed me and said, "Oh, this is my favorite." I've got one kid that his name's Levi. I feel so terrible. He's just Elk Bar is his favorite character, and his parents, his mother especially, just reaches out and, "Hey, when is this going to happen?" He's asking, and I'm just like, oh, I'm a terrible person.
Yeah, all the pressure.
I went to a friend's house of mine, a longtime friend, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to read Elk Bar to my kids?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, I guess." And I started reading it to them, and I messed up, and their daughter started correcting me on it. And I was like, "Oh my!" Like,
that's got to be really surreal.
She knew it just word for word, and I was You talk about a humbling situation where a little girl is just like, "No, that's not, no, it's
like, look, little miss, I made this."
Yeah. And I was like, I didn't want to say that to her because I was so impressed and honored and humbled that she knew. So I at least to honor Levi, I've got to get these stories done.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, well, I mean, if I don't get anything else in life, I've got that. I mean, and I've got much more. I'm talking about like outside family and the most important stuff. If that's if Levi and my friend's daughter corrects me on my own story, done.
I got you.
Yes,
that's incredible.
I don't need anything else. But there's that, which I think most assuredly is going to happen. There's another comic book story that I want to work on that deals with kind of a heavenly type thing, and I'll say that kind of loosely. I don't want to mess up or say that it's theologically sound per se. I don't want to Um,
I live in that world, buddy. I play in that world constantly, so I know
yeah,
exactly what you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. I mean, I can tell absolutely. And I think that it's important. I think it's important for us to look at and examine and re-examine um, and there's a part of me that thinks now like maybe it could take place in the same world as Valor and Tweed and not ever really interact,
Right.
ever really be a Valor and Tweed story. And now I'm at the point
I
where
gotcha.
I really kind of want to make that happen. Um, and I'm really trying to see how that will work out. If I can make it where it doesn't mess up either stories, where I'm not trying to force it.
Right.
Um, but it's an idea that I've had for a while. Essentially, about I guess the easiest way to explain it is basically about an angel that finds himself on Earth but doesn't know that he's an angel. He's got
Oh
amnesia.
wow. That
Um,
that's very interesting.
so he doesn't. And there's a lot of stuff going on around him, and and there's stuff that I inadvertently set up in Valor and Tweed that could really make that that
Kind of
happen.
flesh that out. I
Yeah.
gotcha.
And that wasn't my intention, but now that I look at it, I'm like, well, I mean, it kind of can work. So,
Right.
um, but we'll see. And again, I don't want to, I don't want to be heretical about stuff um, or just loose on that kind of thing. But
Right.
uh,
Well, I mean, that's one of the awesome thing about indie comics, man. I mean, Taylor, the world of indie comics is wide open, man. I mean, Marvel, they've set their boundaries. Like you
mhm,
said earlier, DC set their boundaries. We have none. It's the wild,
mhm,
wild west, man. We can do whatever we want to do. You can go wherever your imagination carries you,
yeah,
and that's one of the great things about the age that we live in. We have the technology and where we can make it happen.
yeah,
We can crowd fund, or we can we've got programs where we can go in and we've got Kickstarter, we've got Indiegogo, we've got all these tools that were never there before, and it's
yeah.
it's
No,
like it's like a new renaissance, you know.
yeah, I agree with you, and I think that what's wonderful is that we've got an opportunity uh, via technology, computers, our tablets, our
Right.
iPads, all these things to do it. And I think
Exactly.
hand in hand, what kind of the shift that happens is that now we've oversaturated um, the ability to do things. Before the challenge was to just get it. I gotta find a printer. We gotta stay up late at Kinko's and
Yeah.
get this thing printed. Eastman and Laird, at their Mirage Studios, which was their apartment or house or whatever. They're like
Right.
trying to pound out, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because they're just crazy enough to do it. And who
Yeah.
knows? They're probably not going on many dates. Um, and
Oh no, definitely not.
um, so they're out there doing that, and now we're just saturated with a lot of people that can create stuff. And so now the the greater challenge to us right now is not can we get stuff made, which we obviously can. And like I mentioned before, like Comic Wellsprings, it'll easily just bam, they'll get your stuff
Yeah.
made with a smile on their face, and they'll give you the best.
Exactly.
They'll give you the best that you can give them, and it'll just look so good. But are ultimately are we giving people the best that we can give them?
Exactly.
And that's the big challenge for us right now, because all this other
Right.
stuff has become so much easier. And I think the challenge to myself, to others, is like you can't be easy on yourself. You can enjoy it, you can have fun with it, but you can't be easy on yourself as far as the content you create. And I think that most people don't want to be easy on themselves. They
No, no. There are. It's just like anything else. You know, people are going to capitalize on making a buck.
Hmm.
You're going to get those folks out. They're like weeds, so to speak. And I hate to be like that, but they're going to, go away. The people that are truly trying to tell a story and are truly dedicated to their craft and their
Hmm.
creation, they're going to stay. They're going to be there. These other people that are just in it for the money, a quick buck, whatever, they're going to fade out. You know.
Yeah, and it's an unfortunate, much like the fan fiction folks that
Yeah.
I mentioned before. It's like, don't do this. Don't don't spend your time trying to chase this. I know of someone that just jumps on anything that is social or political or topical, um,
No.
in order to just pop something out to sell. And ironically, they're the kind of person that would say, "Oh, capitalism is terrible," but they're the first
Yeah.
person that would be like, "Hey,
Right.
this is something that's political that you can buy." Um, and I think that it's a waste of their talents. It's I've
Right.
seen other things that they've done, and it's just such a they've done wonderful things, and you don't. It's a waste of our time to. I think it's a waste of our time to just be so drowned by uh, things that are so temporal.
Right. I completely understand that. And we both live kind of on the outskirts of this. There's a lot of folks doing mainstream stuff on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. You've drawn from your father being a private investigator, and you know a stuffed animal, and I'm dealing in the supernatural horror realm where you got demons and you got angels, and it's loosely theology. The I don't even know the word that I'm trying to go
Theological.
with. Yeah, it's loosely theological, but it just takes things and kind of puts a new spin on them.
Hmm.
Something that people haven't even thought about, and it's that in itself ought to tell people that we're serious about this thing because we didn't go mainstream.
Hmm.
We took these things that are precious to us, these stories, and try to bring them out to people.
Hmm.
You know, I don't know where I was going with that. That was just rambling. It's constantly on my mind though when I see that's the kind of stories that grab me. When people are out there on the fringes, out on the outskirts,
Yep.
they're serious about it.
Yeah.
Because they've got something that I've never seen before.
Hmm.
And they are maybe I've seen it, but they've put a completely new twist on it, and you can see the passion in the project.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. I think that's something that that things like Rick and Morty or
yeah,
uh, probably mostly Rick and Morty, but maybe before a little bit. Uh, Family Guy, definitely before that. This kind of subversive, The Simpsons being when they were subversive
yeah,
uh, type of
way
thing.
back in the day.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
they're on Disney Plus. I mean, oh
hmm
geez, like wow, you guys.
right,
I'm not that there's anything wrong with the mouse or working on a project that the mouse is on. Not if anyone's watching, but I working for the mouse is great. Um. Anyway, yeah. I think that there's a lot of freedom in what we've been given technology wise, um, for what we do. Um,
yeah.
if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. It's just like you were talking. You go on. you've got digital programs, art programs, you've got Photoshop, you've got Clip Studio, you've got all these free programs. You know, you've
Mhm.
got I can't think of the one that's available on Apple, but they they've got them. You know, and not only that, but just like you said, you've got Comics Wellspring, you got Kablam, you got all these printers out there that are
Yep.
just waiting for you to send them files and make your story real. You know, to
Mhm.
put it to paper. You know, once you get the art done and everything, it's a brave new world we live in. And I I thought about something a while ago when you and I can't remember exactly what popped it into my mind. You know, people say that Hollywood is just reboot after reboot after reboot. I think there's more original programming than there's ever been before. I mean, yeah, there's the occasional redo of this, redo of that, but it's only because people they tend to flock. That's what makes the money. They tend to flock to a known commodity, you know. And that's why I think people are overlooking all these original projects, you know.
I, yeah, I think that you're right, and I think that people say that because that's what they that what's get that what's get that is what is marketed to them. I think, if we
Right.
stop and look at the way that marketing is done, we realize that wow, as they spent as much on marketing as they did on the production itself. You know that
Exactly.
that says a whole lot to what uh, what we're talking about. There could be a hidden gem, a legitimate hidden gem of a
Right.
project that just doesn't get marketed, and we find out that later. An example like The Princess Bride, or I
Right.
can't think of anything
Right.
necessarily off the top of
I
my
know
head, but
exactly where you're going there. Yeah.
isn't marketed, and it will hopefully make its way to the surface. But yeah, people know. If you don't, if the Yellow Pages doesn't list the restaurant that you can go to, well, you don't know, and until finally your neighbor says, hey, next to this gas station, there's this great Korean place. And then you're like, oh, geez, like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so tired of fried chicken,
Right.
Um, so, um, and I think we're capable of getting the word out slowly and with grassroots and all that jazz, in a community, that is, you know, gracefully and gratefully respectful to one another. And to know that, I mean, there's space for us. There's space for us
Exactly.
all. Um, is Valor Tweed going to be as big as Superman? Ain't no way.
Hey, it could be. It
I mean,
could be. You
it
never say never.
sure, but I mean, it's not.
I
It's
know
not
what
my
you're saying.
goal.
Right.
Like it. I mean, yeah, it's in the. I mean, geez. I mean, man, a few years ago, 10 years ago, if they're like, "Oh, you're going to get nominated for an Emmy," I'm like, no,
Right.
So I believe that anything could legitimately happen, but it's not my concern or my goal, or I'm not
Right.
throwing that out into the universe. I'm just
I got
trying
you.
to make a good.
You're trying to tell a story.
Yep,
You're a creator and you're trying to just
yep,
tell a story. And if people want to hear it, great. But at the end of the day, you got to tell it. It doesn't
yeah,
matter if 50 people want to hear it or 150,000 want to hear it.
yep.
You got to tell a story.
Yeah, and I think that's. I hope that people get to experience what I've experienced with, those two kids, particularly. You know, if something like that happens to you, it's like, well done. Like,
Yeah.
all those hours are
That makes
worth
it
it.
all worth it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, so anyway, but yeah, it's great to talk to somebody that's kind of on the same journey, um, and just has what I would consider has their head on head on right. Uh,
My wife would totally disagree with you on that. But hey, man, I'll take it. Like I said earlier, I just really appreciate you taking the time to
Oh
come on
man.
the show and tell us your story. Tell us
Oh,
about yourself. I just really appreciate that, Tyler.
oh, it's been great. Did we even mention that we went to the same elementary school yet?
No, we did not. Well, we did, but I can't remember if we were actually live. I don't think we were live then.
I don't
Yes,
think
we
we were
are
live.
Kemp alumni. We are koalas forever. And if d- anybody that's from Jonesboro, Georgia, I know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Anybody else is not going to have a clue.
not a
But
clue.
yeah, we are forever Kemp koalas.
Yeah, that was otherworldly to me
That
when
blew my
you were.
mind.
Yeah,
Yes.
you were like, so, oh, you're from Jonesboro, and I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna grab my phone to look at the conversation, but it was back and forth of, oh yeah, I went to Kemp, and I was like, I went to Kemp, and we
Hmm.
missed each other. I think you had
By a
gone,
few years. Yeah.
yeah, just barely. So I came in '92,
Right.
um, but you were gone at what?
Exactly. I had already moved out of the Atlanta area. I'd moved out of Jonesboro. Um, and we're probably going to lose a few people, but hey, it's fine. We're talking. We're having a good conversation here. So where I lived, you remember where the oh God, what was the raceway? Where they did all the it was right down there off the highway. It was where they did the big Winston Cup series was there. Now, if you come back down the highway back towards Atlanta, coming back that way, there was a little subdivision. Oh, I say little, it was pretty big at the time. Bonanza subdivision.
Uh-huh.
We had a little 7-Eleven right off the side of the road. There was another gas station in front of that, kind of off to the side, and that was like a whole little uh mini shopping mall right there.
Uh-huh.
I want to say there was a church down in that one end of the 7-Eleven and at one time because it was there was a video store in there where me and my buddies would go up there and ride our bikes on the weekend, and they had dollar movies on the weekend. We rent movies there. Dude, they had the old shoot 'em up game, the one person shooter game
Hmm.
inside the 7-Eleven. We'd all, save up our money through the week for cutting grass and stuff like that through the neighborhood, and we'd hit this place. There'd be about 5 or 6 of us in there at one time.
Was this
Right?
up Terra Boulevard or
Yes,
19? Yeah,
yes, yep, that's it.
yeah.
But yeah, we'd hit this little 7-Eleven, and right there as you come in the store, I'll never forget it. You had the magazine rack right there in the front to the
Mhm.
right, and that's where I got, where I locked on to comics big time. I had always been into comics when I was, I've told this story before on the show. My grandmother bought me my first comic when I was real small,
Mhm.
like 6 years old. But this is when I really, truly found my love for mainstream comics.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, during this time, I'll never forget this cover. One of the first covers I seen in that store was Silvestri's Wolverine. Where he's on the X cross. I
Mhm.
bought that issue in that store, and then Jim Lee was working on Uncanny. I was
Mhm.
collecting those, and Todd McFarlane was working on Spider Man, and I
Yep.
I bought several. I want to say Assassination Plot was going on during that time, and you had Sabretooth, you had the Red Skull, you had Captain America in that storyline. I mean, it was just there was so much going on in comics then, you know,
Yep.
and
Yeah. There.
it was all right there at that little store, right
Yeah.
there
There
in
was.
Jonesboro.
There was so much uh, Image Comics before they were Image Comics going on in
Mm-hmm.
Marvel. Um, and,
Exactly.
and there is kind of about to explode. And then you know, uh, in fourth grade, fifth grade, 92, 93, 94. 94. I think that's right. yeah, I mean, that's when I got into comics, and there was some weird out of the way comic book shop that
Yeah.
I convinced my mom to take me to because some other kid recommended it or something, probably because it was close to his house. There was probably one way closer to me, but we didn't have the
Yeah.
internet at that time to know to just search
Exactly.
up.
You just had to
Um,
find these things, or
yeah.
we used a phone book, boys and girls. Yeah.
Oh man, I had to call the theater to figure out what time show
Right.
started. Um,
Exactly.
but um, yeah, and I was into comics for certain, and then I got into the Skybox 1993 comic cards,
Oh
and
God. Yeah.
man, that
I'd
right there,
almost forgot about those.
oh
Those were
man,
incredible.
oh gosh, so good. And the year after was pretty great as well.
Oh yeah.
And I had of like I think 200. There might have been 300, but I think there was 200 of those cards. I had all but two. I think
Oh wow.
two or three. Finally, the store that I went to, they had single ones that you could buy for 10 or 15 cents. So I just would
Yeah.
go in there, and I had
Nickel and dime it down at a time to try and get them all.
yeah,
I got
and
you.
the way that they were made, they if you could put them side by side, they would create the backgrounds would connect, so they'd kind of make up this poster looking thing. And I did the dumbest thing. I did the dumbest thing that a young teenager could do.
Did you glue them together on a poster board?
Well, that might have been smarter. I taped them together.
Oh wow.
And I ruined them. I ruined all those that I had. And anyway, in the last year or so, before it was amazing. It wasn't even that bad of a. I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to buy them outright. I don't care if anyone calls, a sellout. I was like, I got to do it for my childhood. Exactly. And it was like $35 or something crazy at the time.
For the whole set? That. Wow.
For the whole set, not even. And so I bought them. Now they're at a notebook. And my son is going through reading through all this. He can tell me more about Marvel now.
That's awesome.
But oh yeah, it was, that really started the sensation, the love of comics. Back when it was just, just fun and dramatic and action and crazy and just bizarre. I mean, you got stupid character. You got Shatterstar with, some weird face mask and a double-bladed sword. Just ridiculous.
4 fingers.
It was all great. Yeah. It was all weird. I loved it. But
it was an incredible time for comics. Yeah. And I'm sure we can talk to, people that kind of followed it during the Kirby days and the Buscema days, and they probably feel the same way, and that's their era, but late 80s, early 90s, that was our time, in comics. That was our glory days, and hopefully, maybe we'll create the glory days for the next generation. Who knows?
Yeah. I think that's a very great, positive, wonderful way to look at it. I think that it's, we could be shifting in a lot of ways, like film and television is shifting to more streaming, and that, we may be at the end of theaters, we're kind of at the end of billiard halls and bowling alleys. So sure they exist, but that's not what people go to.
Few and far between, yeah.
And I think theaters are becoming that way, and we'll see a shift in. And I think that a similar shift is happening with comics, and people are going to be hurt by it, and people are going to they're going to enjoy it, and it's going to be more special to some. So, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Taylor. I know you told me you had a certain time that you need to be done, and oh, I've overrun you a little bit, but I appreciate you
Oh
just
man.
coming on, man. I appreciate your time, and it was just an awesome conversation. It was just really awesome getting to know you and talk with you, and I hope to do it again. I hope you'll join us again on the show and plug yourself, man. Where can everybody find Velour and Tweed and your uh your other projects like the Elks? The where can everybody get this stuff?
The main thing right now that I can plug is Velour and Tweed. So you can find that at velourandtweed.com, at Velour and Tweed on Twitter, which seldom gets updated. Sorry, but some stuff gets updated. Velour and Tweed uh, for Instagram, Velour and Tweed for Facebook, and then even Mud Pie Comics, which will take you to velourandtweed.com. Um, those are the main things. For Elk Bar, I've got to get the Penguintonia website up and running again. But that'll be up hopefully very soon. I want that ready by the time we go to Baltimore. Um, but yeah, just for the time being, hey, if you want to jump on and read all of the of Velour and Tweed, although it's not the definitive version, there's some changes that are in the comic that is released. You can check out velourandtweed.com, and for the time being, you can read the entirety of it there for free. Although I'd love for you to go on Amazon and
Buy
just go
it.
ahead and just go ahead
Yeah,
and
just
buy
go
it.
ahead and support this man. Buy this story. Go to Amazon. Didn't you say that Walmart possibly and where
Walmart
else?
and Barnes and Noble have it as well. So all those barnesandnoble.com, walmart.com, amazon.com, your local bookstore, go ahead and ask them to carry it. And your local library, go ahead and ask them to carry it. They should all be able to accommodate. That'd be great.
There you go. And once again, thanks, Taylor. And if you want to hang on a minute before we completely close out, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to say goodbye to everybody on the live. You guys be sure and reach out to Taylor and just tell him what an awesome dude he is. Tell him how awesome his story is. Just hey, give him a follow. Hey, it's all about numbers with the algorithm, folks. So give him a follow. You know, and we just really appreciate you coming on, buddy. And everybody, you guys, you have a blessed one. Come back and see us for the next episode of Comics and Sweet Tea. And like I said, tell your friends. Uh, Subscribe, because we're trying to grow this thing out. And we appreciate it. So you guys have a blessed one. And I lost my mouse. Where is it? I had this problem the other day. Oh, there we go.